Every woman has been there. You're dating someone new, things seem to be going well, and then suddenly his behavior shifts. He becomes distant, starts acting inconsistent, or throws curveballs your way that leave you questioning everything. Your friends tell you he's probably just busy, but deep down, you sense something else is happening. What if I told you that he might actually be testing you? And more importantly, what if these tests could actually reveal whether he's serious about building something real with you? Today we're diving deep into the psychology behind why men test women in relationships. And I'm going to share 5 specific signs that indicate he's putting you through various tests. But here's the thing that most dating advice gets wrong. These tests aren't necessarily red flags. Some of them might actually indicate that he's genuinely interested in seeing if you two are compatible for the long haul. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to recognize these tests, understand what they really mean, and most importantly, how to respond in a way that either strengthens your connection or helps you dodge a bullet. Before we jump in, I want to be crystal clear about something. Testing in relationships isn't inherently toxic, but it can become problematic if it's excessive, manipulative, or designed to control you. The key is understanding the difference between healthy compatibility, checks, and unhealthy power games. So let's explore this together. The first sign he's testing you revolves around consistency and reliability. This is what I call the availability test. You might notice that he starts changing plans at the last minute, showing up late without much explanation, or being inconsistent with his communication patterns. One day he's texting you constantly, the next day you barely hear from him. This isn't necessarily because he's lost interest. He might be observing how you react to inconsistency. Here's what's really happening psychologically. Many men have been in relationships where they felt like they were walking on eggshells, dealing with partners who became extremely upset over small changes or disappointments. So when he's getting to know you, he might unconsciously test how flexible and understanding you are when things don't go according to plan. He's asking himself questions like, does she freak out when I'm running 20 minutes late? Does she assume the worst when I don't text back immediately? Can she roll with changes without turning it into a major drama? The healthy way to handle this test is to maintain your standards while showing reasonable flexibility. If he's consistently late or frequently canceling, you can address it directly without being dramatic. You might say something like, I've noticed you've had to change our plans a few times lately. Is everything okay? This shows that you notice patterns, but aren't immediately jumping to negative conclusions. However, if this behavior becomes a regular pattern that disrespects your time, it's perfectly appropriate to set boundaries. The second sign involves what I call the independence test. This one can be particularly confusing because it might seem like he's pulling away when he's actually trying to gauge your level of independence and self-sufficiency. You might notice that he stops initiating contact as frequently, doesn't make plans as far in advance, or seems to be giving you more space than before. Some women interpret this as disinterest, but it could actually be him testing whether you can maintain your own life and happiness without constantly needing his attention and validation. From a psychological perspective, most emotionally healthy men are attracted to women who have their own interests, goals, and social circles. They want to be wanted, not needed in a desperate way. So he might step back slightly to see if you'll panic and become clingy, or if you'll continue living your life confidently. He's observing whether you'll start double texting, constantly asking where he is, or demanding more of his time and attention. The way to navigate this test successfully is to actually embrace the space he's giving you. Use that time to focus on your own goals, spend time with friends, pursue hobbies, or work on personal projects. When he does reach out, be warm and responsive, but don't drop everything to accommodate him. This shows that you're genuinely independent and that your happiness doesn't hinge entirely on his attention. If you find yourself feeling anxious during these periods, That's actually valuable information about your own attachment style and areas where you might want to work on building more security within yourself. The third sign is what I call the values and boundaries test. This is where he might push against certain boundaries you've established or present situations that conflict with your stated values to see how you'll respond. For example, if you've mentioned that you value honesty, he might tell you about a time when he wasn't completely truthful to see how you react. Or if you've established a boundary about something specific, he might gently test whether you'll stick to it or if you'll compromise your standards to please him. This type of testing often stems from past experiences where someone said they valued certain things, but then acted completely differently when faced with real situations. He might be trying to determine if you're authentic about your values or if you're just saying what you think he wants to hear. Sometimes men test boundaries because they want to know where they stand and what the expectations actually are in the relationship. The key to handling this test is consistency and authenticity. If you've established a boundary, maintain it calmly and confidently. If someone violates your values, address it directly rather than ignoring it or getting overly emotional. This shows him that you're genuine about what you say is important to you. However, also be willing to have open conversations about values and boundaries rather than just expecting him to read your mind. Sometimes what seems like testing is actually him trying to understand what your expectations are. The fourth sign involves emotional regulation testing. This is perhaps one of the most common tests men unconsciously administer, and it involves presenting you with stressful or frustrating situations to see how you handle your emotions. He might share something that typically triggers strong reactions in people, bring up a controversial topic, or create minor conflict to observe your response. This isn't necessarily malicious. He's trying to gauge your emotional maturity and stability. Many men have experienced relationships where small issues escalated into huge arguments, where their partners had difficulty managing strong emotions, or where they felt like they had to constantly manage someone else's emotional state. So when he presents you with potentially triggering situations, he's unconsciously asking, can she handle stress without falling apart? Does she communicate her feelings clearly, or does she shut down or explode? Can we have disagreements without it turning into emotional chaos? The most effective way to pass this test is to demonstrate emotional intelligence and regulation. When faced with potentially triggering situations, take a moment to process your feelings before responding. Express your thoughts and emotions clearly and calmly rather than reacting impulsively. If you do get triggered, take responsibility for your reaction and communicate about it maturely. This shows him that you can handle life's inevitable stresses and conflicts without creating additional drama. The fifth and final sign is the future planning test. This one often shows up as him making comments about future scenarios or asking hypothetical questions about long-term situations to gauge your reactions and responses. He might casually mention something about future plans, talk about where he sees himself in a few years, or ask questions about your long-term goals and how they might align with his. Sometimes this testing involves seeing how you react when he talks about future possibilities with you versus how you react when he keeps things focused on the present. This type of testing usually indicates that he's actually considering a future with you and wants to see if you're on the same page. He's trying to determine if your life goals are compatible, if you share similar timelines for major life events, and whether you can have mature conversations about the future without getting overly excited or putting too much pressure on the relationship. Some men test this area because they've been in situations where discussing the future created unrealistic expectations or pressure that ultimately damaged the relationship. The best approach to this test is to be honest about your own goals and timelines, while avoiding putting pressure on him or the relationship. Share your thoughts about the future authentically, but don't treat every mention of future possibilities as a commitment or promise. Show that you can think long-term while still being present and enjoying the current stage of your relationship. If your goals and timelines seem incompatible, it's better to have honest conversations about that rather than pretending they align when they don't. Now that we've covered the 5 main signs, let's talk about how to distinguish between healthy testing and unhealthy manipulation. Healthy testing typically involves situations where someone is genuinely trying to understand your character, values, and compatibility. These tests usually feel like natural relationship progression and give you opportunities to show who you really are. Unhealthy testing, on the other hand, often involves deliberate manipulation, mind games, or attempts to control your behavior through emotional manipulation. Red flags that indicate unhealthy testing include tests that are designed to make you feel insecure, tests that involve deception or lying, situations where he's deliberately trying to make you jealous or anxious, or any testing that feels punitive rather than exploratory. If someone is testing you in ways that consistently make you question your self-worth or feel like you're walking on eggshells, that's not healthy relationship behavior. It's also important to remember that while some level of testing is normal in early relationships, excessive testing can be a sign of trust issues, past trauma, or emotional immaturity. If you feel like you're constantly being evaluated or that nothing you do is ever quite good enough, it might be worth having a direct conversation about what's happening in the relationship dynamic. Here's something crucial that many women don't realize. You're also testing him. Even if you're not doing it consciously, every time you observe how he treats service workers, how he handles stress, or how he responds to your boundaries, you're gathering information about his character and compatibility. This mutual evaluation process is actually healthy and necessary for building strong relationships. The most important thing to remember is that the right person for you won't require you to fundamentally change who you are to pass their tests. Yes, healthy relationships require compromise and growth, but they shouldn't require you to become someone completely different. If you find yourself constantly trying to figure out what he wants you to be, rather than being able to authentically be yourself, that's a sign that this might not be the right match. Moving forward, I want you to approach these situations with confidence and authenticity. Don't try to game the system or figure out the right answers to his tests. Instead, focus on being genuinely yourself and observing whether his testing reveals someone you actually want to be with. Remember, while he's testing you, you should also be evaluating whether his behavior and character align with what you're looking for in a partner. The goal isn't to pass every test, it's to find someone whose tests feel reasonable and whose character impresses you during your own evaluation process. Some tests might reveal fundamental incompatibilities, and that's actually valuable information that can save you both time and heartache down the road. If you recognize these testing patterns in your current relationship, try to have open conversations about expectations, boundaries, and what you're both looking for. Sometimes what feels like testing is actually just miscommunication or different communication styles. Other times, addressing it directly can help both of you move past the testing phase and into deeper, more authentic connection. Remember that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, open communication, and genuine compatibility. While some level of evaluation is normal and healthy, you deserve to be with someone who appreciates and values who you authentically are. Trust your instincts, maintain your standards, and don't be afraid to do your own testing to ensure that this person is worthy of your time and emotional investment. The next time you notice these signs, take a step back and ask yourself not just what he might be testing, but also what his testing style reveals about him as a potential partner. The right person will test you in ways that feel fair and reasonable, and their character will shine through in how they conduct these evaluations. Most importantly, you'll feel confident being yourself throughout the process rather than feeling like you need to perform or pretend to be someone you're not.